All right, I'll start off. Some of you know me, some of you don't know me. My name's Aaron Newbom, like she said, and I've been playing Age of Sigmar for about 2 years, but I've been playing Warhammer since seventh grade, and I am 31 now, so a long time. Uh, and I only started really getting competitive though in these last 2 years, and this is my first GT win, and it just happens to be like one of the biggest ones, so it's pretty exciting. Got a bunch of RTT wins, but and we also have Greg here.
Hi everyone. I've also been playing Age of Sigmar for only about 2 years. I started like 2 months before 3.0 dropped. But before that, I did a bunch of competitive 40k in 6th and 7th edition, so I think it's around 2013, 2014 while I was in college. So I've only recently just gotten to the Age of Sigmar game, and since I've moved down here to California, been able to do a bunch more of the RTTs and been getting really competitive in the GT game, and relative friends with Aaron here. We're competing on the Orc circuit here at this point. So we're here to talk about Old Town Throwdown in general.
Back and forth the first and second in the Orcs category.
Yes.
I was a favorite tapped up nerd.
It boils my anger within me, but it's a good type of boil. I like a challenge, so I'm gonna be coming after you.
Well, it's just a few points difference, so it's still neck and neck. Probably LVL is going to decide this one.
LVL is going to be rough.
So, Greg, like, what armies would you say you're known for playing in general?
At the moment, it's pretty much just been Orc War clans, but I mainly played all of Destruction. But I've been, along with you, been playing a bunch of Big WAAAGH as well for my RTTs and some of my 4-1 wins in Bay Area. But before that, also just playing a bunch of Ironjawz. So mainly just Orcs, and I will give you the same. What are you currently well known for this current season?
Yeah. I'm definitely known as like the Big WAAAGH guy, because that's like they were playing a lot. I was playing Cool Boys for a while, but they just didn't have what it takes, in my opinion. So I started playing Big WAAAGH back when there was like no. In third edition, there was not a single person who had even entered a tournament with Big WAAAGH at that point. I've just been pushing and pushing and pushing the envelope on it, and I finally got that big win with it, which is pretty satisfying. But before that, I've always been kind of a control player. So I played like Zinch, and I was playing Smash for a bit, but it was back when it was broken. I was like, this isn't very fun. I'm just sort of winning with a 76% win rate army. So, but I used to be like a sponsored Magic player, and the same thing. I was always a control player. I was always playing control strategies. So, in my opinion, Big WAAAGH is a control army to a degree. So that's what I'm definitely known for, and what I'm really into. But doesn't matter which overall arcing faction. I just like that sort of play style. So at this event, you played the big Stabbaz list. At this point, infamous. And a weird list that I don't think functions the way necessarily everyone thinks it might.
Right. Sorry, there was some like cutting out in the audio, but yeah, I think I got it. So yeah, Big Stabbaz is a relatively infamous list where a lot of people have been seeing Tom Guan in the circuit go up and down to all these different events playing it. Yeah, it's definitely a weird list to play. It's not what you come for Orcs, where you just want to go in, smash face, and you'll table your opponent. It's closer to what I would take at what I would see Big WAAAGH kind of is, where you're doing a lot of controlling, but in a very different fashion. Where Big WAAAGH, I see it has a lot of versatility, and you can go into many different matchups. With Stabbaz, you just have so many wounds, and you're just mainly trying to control the board with your bases. Yes, it can do a lot of damage because you have a surplus of 3s and 3s, -2 run 2 damage attacks, but you're not there to table your opponent. You're there to slowly, methodically try to get points over them while kind of corralling them in the different portions of the board. So I thought I'd give it a try after seeing like Tom mess around with it a bunch, and especially in this new GHB where I wanted to see where it would go, even with monsters not being a thing. And I think it's still very well situated in the current meta where I'm not running a lot of GVs, but I just have a surplus of wounds that I can either put into monsters, I can put into a bunch of MSCU units. So I think the list is still very well situated for this current season. And for yourself, it's a very.
So do you think
Sorry, go ahead.
it's I think maybe a little bit of lag. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was asking, do you think it'd be better in old GHB or this one, or are they about equal?
I'd say about equal, if not probably probably better, because Expert Conquerors makes it really good for your base battle line that you can even better control and hold onto points when those guys are not going into combat. Yes, there's a lot less monsters in the meta, so at least your big spear throws are not nearly as impactful as they were. But it's still a lot that people have to chew through in order to go through you. So I think it's still very well situated for you to still control the board. Big Stabbas are still very impactful when you have so many little units. You can control how pylons work. You can control just like who's attacking first and when, and also you kind of don't care because you have so many units. Overall, I think it's slightly above where it might have been in the previous GHB, and I think it still allows you to tackle a lot of the current battle tactics than what they may have been in the previous one, because even though they were so easy, but you're still very well situated with your current list to handle the current meta and the battle tactics. So I think it's still very well situated at the moment.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. I guess we'll go all the way down through your list before we go into mine.
Sure.
So what did you face at Old Town Throwdown, and how
So
were they?
my first, so my matchups went as okay. First one was Iron Jaws with uh, it wasn't Bloodtooths. It was Iron Suns with a Maw Crusher, Kragnos, and then Brutes for Battle Line. Second matchup was against Deepkin. This one with a bunch of the Shooty Thralls, an Eidolon, and an Incarnate. The third matchup was against. I'm trying to remember. I know my first round at round 4 was Deepkin again, so I went Deepkin twice. Those were probably my worst matchups, which I'll go into in a sec. And my last one was Nurgle, and because I'm Drakfoot, it's kind of not fair for the Nurgle player.
Yeah, so that just turns off the whole mechanic, right?
Right. So it wasn't necessarily too great for that individual. Deepkin, while I'm still trying to remember my last game, the Deepkin were my worst matchups. They are extremely fast. Both of them, one brought two blocks of 20 Shooty Thralls, and one brought Eels and one didn't. The small amounts of shooting just destroys the Stabbaz. It is painful. It is hard to
Yeah,
control.
you can split the fire around and just take out multiple units at the same time and stuff like that. I can see how that'd be really difficult with that army.
They move 8 inches. Sometimes they can run and shoot. They're so mobile. Deepkin are always, in my opinion, well situated to hit certain things that are very prevalent or like boogeymen in whatever meta, and they will just own it. And I think Deepkin are very well situated to do that for big Stabbas.
Yeah.
Just how quick they were, it was very hard to fight them off of objectives. I remember my last one. It was against Skaven, with Thankwol, a Warbringer. they were doing the more verminous stuff with a big 30 block of storm vermin and
Yeah,
rat ogres, and that was about it.
that
So
definitely seems like more than what you'd want to fight right there.
yeah, everything that wasn't the Deepkin, I was very well situated against. Nurgle, with being a Dragfoot, they can't take ward saves. That cuts a third of their wounds in their whole army right there when they can't save against anything that you do, especially if they're going flies, which my opponent was. They're on a
Yeah, and then the Steelers also have like Ren too, so you're like, all right, 6-up save, no ward. Like, sucks to get got.
Yeah, it's not fair for him. It didn't have a chance. Uh, the Skaven was a little bit rougher with just the Thankful casting. Thankful's just really good in a magic meta when he has
Yeah.
+4 to cast, just kind of base sitting next to a null, but he just didn't have enough output to go through just every single Stabba.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Plus, it's like Thankful is a really, really hard hitting unit and can clear with large units, but if he uses flamethrowers against 2 Stabbas, it's like, oh, that's not really very effective. So I could see it being just clumsy in that situation.
Yeah, Thankful's not the greatest beat stick either. Like, you can kick him out to just be the melee guy, but all in all, it's still a 4-up save with only a 5-up ward, and against me, it's just a 6-up save with no ward. So
Yeah, not what you want to see.
yeah, so Skaven not having a good place. The Iron Jaws also relatively the same thing. He has most of his points in 2 big monsters, and Stabbas, when they die, they're just gonna throw Mortal's Wounds on a 2-up into them. No, so
Well, plus, there's that whole thing which I've seen in action with these Stabbas is that like you come with a Maw Crush and you're definitely killing those Stabbas, but like really almost anything would kill them. So you're just
right.
like, I overkilled them 4 times over. It's just so much wasted damage that doesn't really get to do anything. And that's one of the reasons why I would imagine Iron Jaws is a very good matchup for you.
Right. People have to learn how to split shots against so many units. It's very hard to do that math, and if you leave something like even one big Stabba left over, that's still 3 attacks coming at you that you messed up on. So it's a very hard list to play against, and I think it has a lot of very favorable matchups currently. Um, really, my biggest issue for the tournament was just Deepkin, but I think Big Stab is still well situated against most other factions currently.
All right, that's yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess we should go through the list as like in terms of a little more details of what it is and some of your choices there, some of the more interesting finer points that people might not pick up.
Yeah, yeah. So we can bring up my list here, and at least for what I brought, relatively self-explanatory. At least we'll go from the battalions. I had 1 warlord battalion because I have no shortage of a unit that I can throw into a warlord. And then that allowed me to just bring an additional artifact for my leaders. My 3 leaders were a big boss on foot. He's only there pretty much to give you the command point. The command ability for the 8-inch pregame move. So half of your units in the army, which I brought 20, so I can have 10 units in the army pregame move 8 inches instead of 5.
Yeah,
He's also
it's a
there at
lot.
some points. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of wounds. He's also there at some points to maybe get some out of sequencing combats in later. He's because he has the ability where he can pick another Bone Splitter's unit within 12 inches to immediately fight after he's fought. So
Yeah,
that changes up some math with the MSUs going into big things if he manages to get in. But typically, you don't
yeah,
want him to really get in combat till after you WAD, because he's your only general. He's the only one that can issue your 4+ ward save for a combat.
yeah, and yeah, you don't want to also be losing all your command points and stuff like that. You want to keep it as long as possible. It's not really worth the damage, I would think.
Right. It's not worth him getting sniped out where you might just lose WA. The next
Yeah.
two are kind of obvious. Two WAAAGH prophets. One of them, well, both of them having the Fight Last Gorka Morka's Warcry spell, as Fight Last is phenomenal. If you ever just really need to kill something, you have so many units that are throwing into it, you could just make it go, nope, it's just no longer fighting till all of my units have gone, and it's most likely dead.
Yeah, because if you come in with like 4 different big stabby units and it's fighting last, that's like 4 different units fighting. And as you also see with like Nugs lists and stuff like that, the fight last with MSU is a really powerful combination. It really gets rid of a lot of the downsides of MSU, which means many small units. If you guys aren't familiar,
Yes.
um,
So that's a fantastic spell. I did it against a unit of 4 Nurgle flies, so it just makes it even worse for the dude, where he's just not getting any of attacks, and all of the boys are coming in.
yeah,
One of the WAAAGH prophets has the 4-up ward artifact, well, +2 to a ward save, so you can have a 2-up ward save when you WA, or he'll just have a 4-up base, and he's the guy that will do all of the staring. If I want something dead, he's the one to do it, and it's always just a fun game to play.
yeah. Playing the Zap Daddy, as I like to call him, just because that 4-up ward save, when you actually do the math, it actually triples his damage output, which is like really significant. It seems like, oh, it's just a little bit tougher. It's like much more dangerous,
Yeah,
much more reliable.
yeah, it makes it very reliable. I think statistically, you can at minimum take down half a Gargant for 15 mortals on a 4 board. Obviously, dice are going to be
It's a
dice.
I know for my first 13 tournament games with him, he never did more than 6 damage before killing himself. Sometimes it's like that.
Against my first Deepkin player, I dealt 2 mortals to a king before he killed himself with 11 mortals. It wasn't great. the last
Rough.
the last prophet, he's the casting one. He's got the not this, like shiny gubbins, where he just gets +1 to cast and unbind for every monster within 24. Yes, that's more helpful in the previous meta. I think it's still very favorable because a lot of people might still be, because bounty hunters is a thing, people are not going as hard into their small troop units as they could be, so they're either replacing it with cavalry, bigger monsters. Gargants are still going to be a big thing now in this current meta, so if you run into them, you could have, if they run littles, +3 to cast minimum. It
Yeah,
hurts
and I
every
feel
monster.
like that's yeah. And it's and when you get down to it, like an artifact that gives +1 to cast and +1 to dispel, still pretty good. So
Yeah.
not really a lot of risk.
Yeah, not much in terms of risk there. And then for the rest of the list, it's 1 unit of regular Savage Orcs. They're there to stay in the back. They are the only thing in my army that has more than a 6-up save, other than the WAAAGH Prophets. So they have a 5-up. They just sit back and they deny a lot of the time anybody's grand strat of destroying battle line, because they're 20 wounds that are just going to be 30 onto any objective because of expert conquerors, and they're going to just sit back, give me points, deny you your grand strat, because that's one of the easiest ones people are taking besides book ones, and they'll just be more survivable than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Then you also have 2 units of more boys, right?
Right. 2 units of more boys. They're also kind of in the same boat as the Savage Orcs, where they will be running and just taking on objectives. However, they can also be just a mini hammer, because they just get so
Yeah.
many attacks on the charge. So if I think that there's going to be more of a fight in one section of the
Oh no.
board, charge it in, get the +1 attack bonus, and just see if they will kill whatever they run into. They're extremely swingy. They're 4s and 3s. You still get the additional attacks on 6s, but they're not that great.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely. But they do their job for pretty cheap points as well. So
Right. And then the last thing
and
is 14 units of big Stabbaz and the Burning Head as my endless spell.
yeah, that's more just like if you feel like it, you could throw it out there, right?
Yeah, it can block up charge lanes if I'm lucky, depending on did if I wasn't able to set up the terrain or not. I mean, you do D3 mortals to everything within 3, so it's a possibility that you can get some chip damage on if your opponent really clustered some things. It's not really meant for the damage, but when your main spells are either 12 or 24 inches off of the WAAAGH Prophets, it doesn't hurt to just throw out an endless spell, right?
Yeah, definitely some early game stuff. So well, is there anything you would change about the list going forward?
So this list is really weird. There's not much that I could say changing for it, other than maybe instead of more boys, if you just want to be tankier, just taking the Savage Works instead. But like, I don't think you want pigs because they take up more points, and you don't want to change your sub faction to make them battle line. Arrow boys are also not that great when your shooting is very mediocre in Savage Orcs.
Yeah,
The at that point when you're looking of changing to much more in the list, it's not really much becoming big Stabbas.
yeah. The only thing that I could think of is it's a tiny little thing because it really doesn't. It only 3 years to get it, but you could put like 3 of them into bounty hunters, and it just gets confusing as to which one they are. Which I was like, that's probably why I didn't do it because it's hard to keep track of that.
That's exactly why I didn't do it. I didn't have any tokens. I didn't have any tokens or anything to denote them being bounty hunters. I'm not going to uh, reinforce a unit of Stabbas because that just makes that unit of Stabbas a bigger target, and you want them to die. You want to not feel so bad if a unit explodes, so you
Yeah,
don't want to throw them into bounty, like reinforce them and then throw them into a unit of bounty hunters. If I had a better way of doing it, yes, I would have added bounty hunters. Thank you. That
yeah.
is something
I
I came
figured
up
that was why because I was like, they're all the same. Like it's so hard unless you paint the
with.
bases different or something. And it's not worth like getting the situation where people are like, oh, did you say it was this one or this one, and get arguments like let's just not do that. So
Exactly. Because this list is also a SoCal special, this was a conglomeration of everyone in our
yeah,
SoCal team bringing the big Stabbas together when Tom Guan first asked, like, hey, how many big Stabbas do we have collectively? And then we just brought those together. He went out and played with them. And so they're not completely my models. We're already messing with all these different types of looking models of people painting, so I'm not going to be painting other people's models.
yeah, exactly. Um, all right, do you have any other notes you want to talk about on that list, or you feel pretty good about that?
I feel like it's pretty good. It's not something that I can say anybody would just win with. It's a good list that can go into many lists. Just know if you're going to bring it, you're going to be in for one heck of a time doing a lot of careful measuring. You have to move a bunch of units, which can be pretty taxing, and you might clock yourself out. So it's going to require practice. It's not something that you're just going to win with. Don't go into it expecting that you're going to table your opponent. It is a very thought-provoking list, is what I will throw up. Which, yeah,
I would definitely say both of our lists kind of fall into that category. They're
right,
not like pick up and win. It's definitely like this. Like I think Big Stab is play Big Stab is if you want to get really good at zoning and movement with infantry. Big Stab is a great list to like train yourself up on that. Because it will, if you mess up, you'll get blown up. But if you do it right, it's very satisfying.
right. So that's
Um,
a decent segue into your list. I would imagine.
yeah. So I played a very unusual big wall list. I mean, see, big wall lists for one thing, there really isn't like one list, and there never will be. The thing about big wall is that you can really you can tune it to the meta extremely specifically because there's this huge range of units to pick from, and also you tune it to your own personal play style. because there is so many tools available to you. You have to know yourself, know how you play in situations, and really tune it to that. So my list is for sure tuned to me, but I do think it is overall a powerful list. So I'm going to kind of run over some of the. Well, if people aren't familiar with Big WAAAGH, I'm going to go over a couple things. With Big WAAAGH, you do get a couple of the allegiance abilities for several different factions, but you don't get all of them. And that really influences a lot of your choices. Because, for example, you don't get smashing and bashing. So MSU aggressive units, you can't really send in multiple at the same time without a big risk of fighting back, unlike Iron Jaws. But you also have this big WAAAGH mechanic where you, over the course of the game, you start stacking up all these WAAAGH points, and your army gets more and more powerful as the game goes on. Eventually, +1 to cast, +1 to dispel, +1 to run, +1 to charge, +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and eventually +1 attack. So it just you get really powerful towards the middle of the game. So knowing that, the list is designed to play a 5-turn game. It's not designed to table people in 1-2 turns. It almost can't do that unless you get really lucky. It's designed to play all 5 turns and win over the course of those 5 turns. So the first choice, I'm going to kind of do them in like groupings of how they work. So I have the Zap Daddy, the WAAAGH Prophet with the 4-up ward, and what he's great for in this list is buying time. No one wants to charge in with a WAAAGH Prophet who will just annihilate whatever you sent in. So it buys you a couple turns because people don't want to just throw, like, let's say the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, which did happen. Yeah, he sent it in, he killed my unit, I'm like, alright, Vampire's dead. That's 400 points gone. The second thing that helps a lot with the buying time is I've got a Vulture boss, a killer boss and a Vulture, which most people don't play, but I actually think it's the best unit in the entire army. Because what it does is, with his special command ability, he can issue a second Unleash Hell in the same turn, and you've got 12 Bolt Boys, 2 to 6.
Yeah.
So the 12 Bolt Boys plus the WAAAGH Prophet create this situation where if they come in, they're going to get double overwatched and then zapped, and they're going to lose a lot of their army killing screens mostly. And that really helps you buy the time you need to charge up your WAAAGH to start controlling the battlefield and eventually wiping your opponent up. And then there's 2 War Channas. War Channas are good. We know what they do. Double damage. Super good.
Double damage, yeah.
There's some neat little synergies that go on between things, like, for example, WAAAGH Prophet can stare, and then you can use Fix and Beat to heal him up a little bit. Between turns, that's like a nice little thing. So you can, because a lot of time you get the WAAAGH like 1 wound, like, alright, I'll stop staring. You heal him up by D3, and then he does a heal heroic action. You're like, okay, well now he's back up to 6 wounds, which is pretty scary. Little things like that. Then we'll get into like some of the units. So there's 3x5 Ard Boys in the list, and also unit of 15 Ard Boys. One of the Ard Boy units is not an Expert Conquerors, but the rest are. And basically the small ones were mostly used to just create screens, control space, stuff like that. The 15 Ard Boys, it wasn't Expert Conquerors, but like really what their job is to go on whatever side of the table doesn't have bounty hunters and just grind through the army on that side of the table. They're really good at that. If the bounty hunters hit them, they just pop like nothing. But everything else really struggles to remove them. And the thing about Ard Boys, they kind of suck in Iron Jaws. But in Big WAAAGH, when you have +1 to hit and +1 to wound and +1 attack, with 15 Ard Boys, you're looking at 61 attacks, 3s, 2s, 2 damage apiece, and that kills almost anything in the game. For 270 points. So they're a nice unit, but you can't really expect them to actually hold up against bounty hunters. That's the one thing that changed in this edition. There's 1 unit of Gore-Gruntas, and the Gore-Gruntas are nuts right now. They're so good. And bounty hunters, they just, like, anything they touch dies. And for 170 points, being able to just launch it in with the Spy Destroyers, and then a move and a charge, and you can kill like 40 zombies in one go.
With a 3 damage buff, 3 damage apiece. Yeah.
It's gross. I was considering even running the Choppas on them just to have more bounty hunter attacks. The math didn't work out though. So that's really like a tool that I'm using to like start my control of the battlefield, start building wall points. They're designed to die, but they're there to like buy time, kill off the units that are going to contest objectives. Sometimes I charge them into other bounty hunters, just try and trade them off, so that towards the end of the game I'm still alive. It's a very complicated list. That's why it's going to take a long. There's a lot of different units. The other unit that I haven't been seeing this because it wasn't good until now, but Morgoth's Crushes. If whatever book you're playing right now, I would highly recommend you look at the warbands that are like kind of smaller versions of your battle line troops, because the prevalence of bounty hunters makes your battle line troops die like that, like just pop. If you bring 5 brutes, they're gonna die easier than 3 Morgoth's Crushes. So you're paying 90 points for more survivability instead of 160 points. The other thing is that in bounty hunters, 90-point Morgoth's Crushes, put a war chant on them, throw them into something, they're doing 4 damage apiece with 11 attacks.
Really? Okay.
Which is disgusting.
It's pretty painful.
For 90 points, it's just, you can't really go wrong with that. There's some neat little minor things interact, but some minutia play, like for example, in a garrison, you can put 12 Bolt Boys and 3 Morgoth's Crushes, so if they charge, double Overwatch, and then the Morgoth beats the shit out of you. So there's little things like that, little synergies, and I don't think I'm forgetting any other units. I think that's everything.
I think that's everything last time I checked.
So yeah, that's my list. There's several units that can change. I think the 15 Ard Boys are definitely like the flex spot. There's depending what you might do, 270 points right there. You can kind of throw into lots of different things, and fine tune stuff. But most of the list I think is rock solid. You don't really want. Oh, also, sorry, I have one more thing. The Shaman, the Weird Knife Shaman.
Oh yeah.
We've got teleport. Any big wall player will tell you that teleport is critical. Being able to have +1 to charge, and Arboys have an additional +1 to charge after you teleport him, and he's got +1 to cast as well, makes it much more reliable than you would in other situations. So it's a 7-inch charge instead of a 9-inch charge, and that wins games. Teleports win games.
And did yours take Master of Magic?
I did not.
Not take.
Normally I do take Master of Magic, but in the old edition I always took Master of Magic. But with these missions, most of them are just right dead in the center. So I didn't really necessarily rely as much on it. And I really wanted the Vulture boss to be my general, because I had my grand strategy is WAAAGH, and I wanted to be able to just double move him into the enemy's deployment zone, and like the last turn of the game, kill some small screening unit, and get my grand strat reliably. So that was like definitely a big factor in choosing that. But it is a good choice often to have the Weird Knob with Master of Magic, to just have that reliable teleport and be where
I saw that he did have Super Sneaky. So considering that is supposed to happen before determining who has first turn, and you are a lot of drops, what did you think was what was the main purpose behind that choice, and what did you use for it?
Okay, so high drops, I think, is underrated by a lot of players. It lets you really control the deployment phase. Like, 20 drops, right? Like, you get to say where the fight's going to happen.
Right.
In Cruel Boys list, oftentimes you'll use Super Sneak is used for like alpha strikes and stuff like that. But in Big WAAAGH, not so much. It's more like, I'm going to put out my Bolt Boys. You know where they are, and you're going to screen out and zone yourself. I'm like, all right, so I'm going to just redeploy them to a different part. And now if you give me first turn, you're going to get shot anyway. And you can really use it to mess with your opponent's head. And versus slow foot-slugging armies, you can actually use it for the alpha strike still. You just put it like, there's no way they're going to get to it in one turn, and you're now threatening all their characters. And what it does is it punishes people for giving me first turn. Because the thing is, I can use like garrisons and other tricks like that and teleports to get both Bolt Boys in range, hero move my Vulture boss, and move my Gorgruntas, and all of a sudden they thought they were safe, and there's 4 units hitting them really hard on one flank. and it switches the script pretty hard on them on those situations. So that's why the super sneaky general is important for strategic play. Yeah, so I think that's a good summary of my list. My matchups.
Yeah,
Yeah, matchups. Round one, I fought Fire Slayers, which with my list is very easy. I think with like Iron Jaws and stuff like that, it's harder. But with my list, I can just kind of zone them out and kill all their characters with bolts, which is what happened. There's not much you can do about it, which any Fire Slayer player will tell you. Just shooting, especially really accurate armor-piercing shooting, not what they want to see. He did his best, but there really wasn't. It was just a bad matchup for him. Round two, I fought James House, who's the Arizona TO, and he was on skate with Storm Fiends, a Deceiver, Thanquol, and he played excellently. But I got into combat with both his Clan Rat units with Morgoth's Crushes, using a teleport and getting in, and then with my Gorgrentas and his screen's just gone. And then got into his Storm Fiends with 15 Ard Boys pumped up, and it was like, ooh, and then I doubled. So it was like,
he doubled him.
Yeah, but it was a game that ended at the top of 3, but it was actually a very, very close game because he played excellently. It was just like that double roll right there was like key. Gotcha. After that, round 3, I fought Ramon Silva's Night Haunt, which was a contentious game, but whatever. I did win, but it was small edges left and right, back and forth. I do think Night Haunt is really tough for Big WAAAGH. It's a hard matchup because reducing my damage by 1 in terms of my War Channas with the Cruel Guests, my higher rend units don't accomplish much. He's got such good protection for his characters that I can't really shoot him off with the Bolt Boys very easily. So it's definitely a harder matchup. But it is winnable. It's just like a 45 to 55 type matchup.
Right.
Then round 4, I fought Frank Deloach on his very, very aggressive Soul by Gravelords list. He had like 10 Blood Knights, a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, 10 Black Knights, 20 Graveguard. Like he was in there to kill you. And that was probably one of the best games I've ever played. We were like screaming and yelling and like cheering because every single turn, who was winning completely flipped on its head. And then I ended up winning by he made a 12-inch charge to try and steal the game from me, and then I survived with 1 wound, which made me win by 1.
Wow.
So it was a super good game. And he's a great player. He knew exactly what he was doing from start to finish. He did get his Vampire Lord blown up turn 1 by the Zap Daddy though, which was pretty funny. The Zap Daddy in that game killed him. He killed Manfred. He killed 4 Blood Knights, and he killed 5 Black Knights, and never died. It was just
150 points, taking out half your army. It feels a little bad.
A little brutal. And then my last match was against the legendary Noog. That was another amazing game. We played all the turns, came down to 1 point again. Beast of Chaos and Big WAAAGH, I think, are like a dead even matchup. It's just who plays better, and he made one mistake, and that made me win by 1 point. He just forgot to charge with 1 little unit that's off on the side. You know, there's so much stuff going on the table. 1 slip up, and then that's all it took to steal it out. Right. Yeah, but that was an amazing game. And then I ended up winning the tournament because Gavin and Alex got a minor win, and I thought I was going to get 2nd place, but I was like swept up from under them with that win. So it was a very challenging matchup because I fought 2 TOs and 3 GT winners.
Yeah, so it was not an easy path to victory for you. You fought hard.
But I've been practicing Big WAAAGH for a long time, and I just knew my army so well that I could pull it out there. Yeah.
So because a lot of people still very interested in your Big WAAAGH list. How do you think it would have fared versus the other possible 5-0 contenders? So Alex Gonzalez's Blade Guy's Night Haunt, Matt Barker's Blade King Nurgle, and Gavin's Bastillodon Seraphon. How do you think that it could have fared maybe in those matchups or those factions in general?
I think okay, so the Nurgle list would have probably been fairly tough for me. With this particular list. I don't. My tools aren't really designed to deal with Nurgle super well. The Ard boys are amazing with. They're just raw wounds, just raw damage. But most of my list is more tuned for removing particular things as opposed to just general damage. Whereas my previous list, like when I used to run 15 brutes, Nurgle is no wipe up anything. This one, it's a little bit more of a surgical tool, and Barker's really good, and also his list is pretty powerful. So that would have been a tough one, I think. I still think I could have won, but it would have been more on points, not on like table aim, because he doesn't have that many units. So I would have had to play the KG game.
Right.
Alex Gonzalez, I think my list is pretty strongly favored against that particular Night Hunt list. Because I do have a good amount of bounty hunters, and I don't rely on Rend as much. And he didn't have as much sort of like protection units for his key characters, so I could have shot them off a little easier. His list was super good. I just think that matchup, I think I'm a little bit favored. It's definitely not easy though. No one at the 5-0 is going to be.
No.
And then Gavin, I mean, Gavin's a fantastic player. I think round 5, that mission with the 8 burning objectives, I think on that mission I could beat him. All the other missions, I think I lose. I think I lose that matchup. Seraphon reducing my damage by 1, really tough. It's hard. Croak is really rough when you're playing MSU. He just kind of kills all the things you need him to not kill, and then you just can't win. I don't really have the tools to kill like the Ancient of the Gods without him having a say in it. So it's a pretty tough matchup, but on the 8 objectives things, I have so many bodies. I'm so much more mobile than him that I could just like win on points. I think on that mission. All the other ones, I think I would have lost, honestly. So I kind of got lucky dodging him earlier in the tournament.
That's a lot of the tournaments just getting up there, right? It's a lot of luck and still an equal amount of skill.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be really good and a little lucky to win a tournament.
Yeah.
I got the matchups I needed, I think.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was done with my point, so.
Oh, my bad. So believing that you're like one of the first people for a 5-0 in Big WAAAGH, how does it feel to be one of those first people to set the standard for your faction? And now, just with being the 5-0, everyone's like, God damn, I need to know Aaron, and I need to know like what he can here. How's it feel?
A great feeling to like pioneer an area, because I always, for me, when I'm playing in tournaments, it's not so much about winning. It's about winning the way I want to, and getting better. Those are 2 things I care about. I don't actually care too much if I win the tournament or not. I care, did I learn, and did I get to do the cool idea and see how it worked. So for me, if I can win a tournament with a pioneering list or archetype or whatever, that's like the ultimate thing for me. I want to shout out Hubs on the AOS the coach Discord. He's one of the other players I think really knows what he's doing with Big WAAAGH, and you as well, Greg. Obviously, like we talk about stuff like that
all the time, man.
So, but it does feel really good, and I'm hoping to soon get a 5-0 with Cool Boys now, because I got to start knocking off the.
Going down the checklist, man. You just got to make it harder for yourself.
Yeah, I gotta up the ante on these things. But yeah, it's really good, and I think Big One in particular is great because there is such a high skill ceiling that I do have a lot to teach people, and people have messaged me, and I've been able to actually give them very useful advice. Whereas like some armies, like Iron Jaws, it's really like you just have to make good decisions. Like it's kind of hard to really explain without playing the game with them, you know?
Yeah, when most of their things is just around movement and the smashing and bashing, it's hard to really explain more about it without just having a more in-depth knowledge of the game. Whereas Big WAAAGH, like you said, huge skill ceiling, reminds me very similar to Legion of the First Prince before they're going to get changed in December, but not just one solid list that you're taking every time. It's something
Yeah,
that you're constantly changing and you're always adapting in every single game of just thinking like, all right, how am I going to outbest my opponent here?
yeah, definitely. It's and then also like yeah, like I said, there's no one list. There's a list that's right for you and for the meta. There's some core things you want to keep. Like you always have the Zap Daddy. Gotta have him. You probably always want one of the Gorgruntas, honestly. But other than that, like all flexible. It's all what you need. So it's a fun one if you guys are interested in getting to Big WAAAGH. It's like a great way to just if you like list building, it's a good faction for that. Um, so we've gone over both of our lists and our matchups and how it all went. One thing I just want to oh yeah, so I want to talk about the tournament itself.
Yeah, man.
So Old Town Throwdown they're just super fun events. It's got like this really like hype, friendly atmosphere, and it's super competitive at the same time. But it's not in the contentious sort of way, more in the like we're just going to do our best and like everyone's playing by intention and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, what do you like about Old Town Throwdowns?
So, as someone who's very new to the California just scene in general, like my February was my first Old Town Throwdown, and it still had the same exact energy in summer as well. Everyone's just super nice. We're all there to have a great time. Even if you're losing, you still want to play well. And then there was a saying that I heard recently is for Old Town Throwdowns is that there's a bunch of drinking and then some AOS going on for some people, which was hilarious to see. Just some of these big groups of people just palling around, just screaming at the top of their lungs when they're all just half tipsy, just throwing dice at each other. It is one heck of a time. I very much enjoy it, and I would love to bring that kind of energy to where I came from in East Coast, and just seeing that go as far wide as it can possibly go. When you can just always have fun playing games regardless of how competitive it is, that's the best time to me.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to shout out that really make this tournament work so well. The Golden Spoon. So
Oh
we have this prize,
yes,
the Golden Spoon for dead last, and it started off as like a little gold spoon. It gets bigger and bigger. Now it's this giant, like 4 foot tall, wooden carved golden spoon that like just and the feeling of someone who went 0-5, lost all their games horribly, and they get to win this like hilarious prize and like run. It's great. And there's the most mediocre prize. You're like dead right in the middle. You're just like it's
yeah,
kind of tongue in cheek. It takes a lot of the pressure off. It doesn't feel so bad to lose when there's all these like silly things and the atmosphere changes. Just more positive.
yeah.
Plus,
Tom made it like super interesting that you can, regardless of where you are in standings, there's still something to fight for. Even if it's silly, it's so fun.
yeah, exactly. And then obviously the best prize you could possibly get,
Hell yeah.
the Old Town Throwdown wrestling belt, which
It's
you don't,
massive.
it's huge and it's metal and it's like it. I'd take it over a trophy any day. Like
Oh yeah,
now everybody's got to challenge the champ. Every Old Town Throwdown from now on, I'm be wearing this the whole time.
all the time.
Walking around. Alex Gonzalez, you got one too, and you better wear it to LVO because we gotta have a match off with our victory belts.
You're hearing a challenge right here, right now, folks.
Calling you out, Alex.
Fantastic. Yeah, just Tom runs a really very great and entertaining tournament of just having things all around whatever bracket you're at. It's a really refreshing thing when I'm just walking around as even a 3-1 and I'm hearing somebody excited that like, all right, I'm competing with this dude for a golden spoon. Like and they're just not throwing the game at for each other. They're still playing. They're just like rooting. It's like, yeah, I can roll a double one better than you, bastard. Like this is amazing. Like
Yeah,
I love that aspect.
you get the roll better awards. Whoever rolls the most double ones on charges and most miscasts, like it takes away that bad feeling that you sometimes get when you're doing bad tournament. It just makes it something hilarious. So big shout out to that. I think other tournaments should try and throw some of those things in there to really like improve the community and atmosphere there.
Because when it comes
Yeah.
down to it, it's just that you want your players to have fun. Like
Yeah.
I can understand if you like top tables. Like yeah, they got to be pros, best of the best, but everyone's got to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, all the players have to have a good time for it to be a truly successful tournament. So, yeah, and so then the next Old Town Throwdown is going to be the Old Town Throwdown Teams Tournament, which is late November.
November, closer to December, I think.
Between November and December. It's going to be 4-man teams. I played in the last one. I went 4-1 with Cool Boys across it, but teams tournaments are pretty good for Cool Boys. So,
Pretty good.
but it was a blast that time, and we're hoping it'll be even bigger this time. If you've never played a team tournament, I highly recommend it. It's a very different experience from solo tournament play, and there's that camaraderie and like it changes the game in a really nice way. So I definitely recommend you guys try it out at this next event. It's going to be south of LA somewhere. We don't have the exact location done, right? But
yeah, it's a very interesting event where you have a game before the game where you and your team are trying to decide, all right, where are we throwing the matchups, who's best into this. It's I like that strategic aspect for it, and even if you don't think you're that into that aspect, it's still be a great time to just come with a bunch of your buddies, just see where you can go, where you can place yourself, and I think that it's good. It would be one of my first team events, and I haven't done many of them, so I'm very looking forward to seeing how that changes my perspective in terms of the game, what you could do with it, and I think it's
yeah,
gonna be really cool.
I think one last thing. What events you got coming up, Greg?
So we got Arizona coming up soon. We gotta
Team event.
Gotta come the team revenge right there. All SoCal coming in for that revenge, guys. So watch
Yeah.
out for that one. And we got the Las Vegas team event as well coming up as well. Also
Yeah.
late September. Late September.
Yeah. End of September, and me and you are on a team together, which is going to be awesome.
It's gonna be great, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, we got the SoCal Open,
Yeah.
and then after that, I think that's that about for me at least the rest of the year. So I'll be at all those events. Anybody who's watching this, feel free to say hi. We're both super nice people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to see you guys at events. You got anything else you want to add, or?
Just thanks to wonderful Tom and his family for having us talk about the event and just having us be a part of this. They're wonderful people that have created this community for us, and we just want to help do our best to expand it, get you guys all in, become a part of it, and just hope to see you there.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
We love you.
Bye.
The website on oldtownthrowdown.com.